You guys are in for a treat. We're about to record episode number 3.
Yay! Welcome back to Call to Homeschool. We're excited to be here again. How was your homeschool week, Meg?
You know, it actually went pretty well. I had a couple sick babies this week, and that sometimes is hard, but it actually was really nice because the baby wasn't destroying anything. He just laid in my lap while I got to do school. And funny thing with homeschool, there are no sick days. So somebody threw up in the morning, but they're doing school by the afternoon. So it's a blessing in disguise, I guess. How about you? How was your week?
It was good as well. Pretty normal. Nothing much to report on that. We actually had a sick one at the end of the week too. I think we spent too much time together this week or something. But we're good. It was normal and good. Those are always the good ones, you know?
Yes,
nothing big
nothing
happened.
crazy.
Calm.
I like that vomit is nothing too crazy. That's regular for us. We are really excited about this episode. It is called "Are You Smart Enough to Homeschool?" What did you say that this is a big concern with everybody?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It was one of my biggest concerns when I started, it's a common fear. So we want to really
yes. And I think what will be great about this episode is actually Karyn has a teaching degree and I do not. So you can kind of hear perspectives of somebody who has a teaching degree and somebody who, as my husband likes to call me, someone who grew up by the tracks. So it wasn't really the hood, but yes, there were train tracks right in my backyard. But it wasn't sketchy. It was cool. Anyway, so Karyn, why don't you kick us off? Talk about your perspective.
So I do have a degree in education. I have a bachelor's in secondary education, and I taught high school, middle school. I subbed part-time before getting teaching jobs in pretty much every grade, and I also have run an in-home preschool. So I have literally taught every level of school, elementary and secondary, except for college. Maybe we'll get there someday.
I was going to say maybe.
No, I haven't done college yet.
So you had like complete confidence to come into homeschooling, right?
Absolutely, I did not, which is the funny thing. So here I've taught at every level. I have a teaching degree. But when it came to considering homeschooling, I was still afraid. And I was still thinking I did not know enough to homeschool. And I think because my thoughts immediately go to high school. And here I was starting with a kindergartner and thinking, I don't know enough to homeschool chemistry and pre-calculus. You know, that's where my thoughts went because I was thinking 10 years down the road. But then I had to remind myself that I was teaching a kindergartner and I knew my alphabet and I knew my addition and subtraction facts and I could count to 20. And so I knew that I could do kindergarten. And so that was what calmed me down initially. I was like, all right, I am smart enough to homeschool a kindergartner. I know that I am. I can do this. So that I just would have to talk myself down from that ledge of I'm not doing pre-calculus or chemistry yet. I'm doing kindergarten. And then the next year, when I reconsidered again, am I smart enough to do this? I'm like, I'm doing first grade. I know all the things that a first grader knows. I am smarter than a first grader. What was that TV show? The fifth grader one?
Fifth grader, yes.
Yes. So, yes, I was afraid. With a teaching degree, I still had that fear. And I think the most important thing that you need to think about when you homeschool is that you are your child's parent. That's the first and most important thing, and you know them and you know their needs, and so you can figure out what that child needs at that time in their life.
That's awesome. I have come from a very completely different background than Karyn. I was thinking about it when I was young and in elementary. I actually did quite well in school and in math, which is funny. But in fourth grade in my math, I was excelling and I was finishing before other kids. And so, you know, like I was the cool kid. Not really. Nobody thinks they're the cool kid when they are good at math. But I would go around and help kids when I finished early so I could help them with math. By sixth grade, I was in pre-algebra, and our math teacher, he would leave the math book open with the answers so that you could check your work. And in my simple mind, I thought, this guy's a fool. I'm not going to do any work, and I didn't. I would just go and write the answers because I thought I didn't understand the concept of check your work. I understood this is way easier. So that's when I learned how to do the minimum to get by. And so I didn't excel as much later on. In eighth grade, I actually got really into science, and that's where my brain works, is some of those science or math classes. And so I did well in science, and then I was in honors biology in ninth grade, and they said, high school, you should do AP biology. And I said, are you kidding? High school is all about having a good time. And I didn't want to do any difficult classes or push myself. And I did take English 1010 in my senior year, only because it was half a semester of English versus a year of English. So to me, it was just taking the easier route, and I'm pretty sure I passed the class by the skin of my teeth. My senior year, this was an experiment I did, which I passed, which is sad, but I tried to see how many absences I could get and still pass, and I did. It was the only 4.0 I ever got my whole education. Was the year that, like, that last semester of my senior year. Wow. And so I actually talked my way into A's in every class, which is a great life skill, but obviously I didn't come with a really great background with education. I signed up after I graduated high school. I signed up for college twice, and I dropped out 2 times. So the only college I have is that English 1010 class. That was my easier option. That's all the college I had. I was married at 19 and had my first baby at 21. And I just wanted to be a mom, and I had no desire to do college. So now here I am with a kid, and I'm going to educate him. And I'm looking back at my experience saying, my education was a joke. How in the world am I supposed to teach this child? And I like what Karyn was saying, that a kindergarten, right? I knew how to read. I knew my letters, I could count, and I didn't do that as much. I didn't have that good of a mindset yet. But I looked at what I already had taught my child. So if you think of a baby, you teach them to even hold their head up, right? The basics. Sitting up, crawling, walking, and it just continues to progress to feeding themselves. If you have a kid, you've taught them how to use the bathroom, which is way harder than homeschooling, right? Yes. And way complicated. And as you are always teaching your kids how to drive, which is terrifying, right? Like, if you mess up teaching your kid math, nobody dies. But like, teaching your kid to drive is a little scary. Shaving, how to take just hygiene and all those, cleaning the house and all those types of things. You're teaching them constantly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that in reality, most education happens outside of the school. You know, all the things that we're learning in life seems to be more valuable and more useful than, you know, sitting in a classroom and those kind of skills. And we as parents teach our kids so many things from the home. And who's to say that only a certified teacher is allowed to teach them how to read? You know, I think it's interesting the way our society thinks that that's the only option and the only possibility there.
Yes, and I think a lot of times if you can feel confident in teaching them, then you're open to being able to figure things out. And I want to kind of talk about feeling confident. How do you actually feel confident? Well, all feelings are driven from your thoughts. So you have to think thoughts that will help create the feeling of feeling confident. So here are just a couple suggestions I have of how to create that feeling of, I don't know how to do this yet. So now that Karyn does have somebody who's older, chemistry really is a possibility, right? Different than when you were in kindergarten. But she has a lot of confidence that she says, I just don't know how to do this yet. But she knows how to figure it out. Another thought I thought could be helpful was, in the age of technology, anyone can figure out how to do something. We have Googled and YouTubed how to do so many different things. I just spoke to somebody this morning who their boy, for YouTube, when he was 10, got tin and melted it down and made molds. They're not homeschoolers, but created slingshots from molds he created, cool. And it's from YouTube. So we have so much technology readily available that's even free that you can figure anything out. And then the last thought, I just thought, if Meg can do it, anybody can do it, right? The girl that grew up by the tracks, thank you very much, Johnny, and I didn't have a really strong educational background, so if I can do it, anybody can do this.
Yeah, and just some interesting statistics I learned. It's not required in any state for anyone to have a college degree to homeschool, but in 11 states it is required to have a high school diploma or a GED, which I didn't know that. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then they've done a lot of studies on homeschoolers to see whether having a college degree makes a difference on the success of those homeschooled children, and it actually does not. And one of the studies even showed that or the children whose parents did not have a degree scored 1 point higher on standardized tests than those who did have a degree. So it really almost is a little bit better. And I don't know why that would be. Maybe the parents are less structured or less, rigid in their teaching or something. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But also all the studies that they've done, the biggest difference that it made in the education of the kids was the size of the family's library in their home. And I love that so much, because if you could see how many books I have in my house.
Say between the two of us.
Right? It just makes me feel like I'm doing a good thing. Because you're spending a lot of time reading with your kids, obviously, if you have a large library, but also they're just exposed to a lot of books and they have a lot available to them that they will spend time choosing to read more often. And I thought that was so cool to know that. And then those who they studied, like from the 70s, they studied like thousands of kids, and they measured how often they were read to by their parents as kids and how often they were choosing to read. And those who were read to often and chose to read performed better in math, vocabulary, and spelling.
So there's hope.
So yeah, build your library and read to your kids a lot, and I think that you're going to have a lot of success whether or not you feel smart enough.
I would like to I'm wondering, Karyn, with your degree, did you learn, what did you feel like you learned with education? I think I've heard you talk about this before, it wasn't necessarily how to teach a child, or
I don't feel like I really learned how to teach very well in my classes. I don't think that I learned that until I actually was student teaching. I remember going into that semester of student teaching, and for me doing secondary, it was split half in the middle school and half in the high school. And I went to the middle school first, and I was panicking. I did not know what I was doing. I'm going in there, I was done with my degree. This was the last semester. And I had no idea how to do this. I didn't know how to make a lesson plan. I didn't know how to do any of these things, and I was terrified. Until I actually got in there and was working with the students, I never felt confident. And after that semester of homeschooling, or not homeschooling, student teaching, sorry, I gained a little more confidence and felt like, okay, I can do this. And I look back on my teaching years now versus how I teach my kids at home, and there's just a vast difference. And I think it's just the years of experience I've gained and the knowledge I've gained of teaching my kids for these years. I am just much more confident, more comfortable, and I've learned a lot more about how kids learn, and I think that that's really important. So I really feel like the most experience for me was gained hands-on in there doing it.
Yeah, my husband and I were actually talking about this yesterday, that you never will feel ready in life for certain things. Mm-hmm. Whether it is moving out of your house, like I'm not ready if you're a teenager, right? And when you're going to have your first child, like we're not ready to have a kid until XYZ are in line. And homeschooling, do you really ever feel ready? And I think some of these big decisions in your life that are life changing, you never really feel ready. You just have to take that leap of faith and go for it. Yeah. And rely upon Heavenly Father and a lot of prayer, and then just have faith and move forward.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about is learning alongside your kids. And this is one of my favorite things about homeschooling, because I feel like my education has grown so much, and I kind of touched on that a little already, but so much since I started teaching my own kids, because I am relearning, or maybe learning for the first time, all these things that I should have learned in school. And I was a really good student. I loved school as a kid. I enjoyed learning. I've always enjoyed learning. I loved college. I loved all of it. I just enjoyed it. And I still enjoy learning. So for me, it wasn't that I wasn't trying to learn. It wasn't that I didn't want to, or that I was cheating my way through school or anything like that. It was more just, I don't think that, I don't know, maybe it's the way it was taught, or it just didn't stick with me. So I feel like I'm getting it all over again, and it's exciting to me because there's all these things that I am learning that I'm loving. I love learning about history again. I love figuring out math finally. Math was never my favorite.
Fractions like a boss now, just say.
Right, I know, I'm pretty good at multiplication facts, like all these things that I was like, were hard for me when I was young, are not hard for me anymore because I've done it so many times now that it's just kind of coming naturally to me now. And so I feel like that's one of the hugest benefits for me as a mom, is all that I'm learning in my education has just ballooned, and it's been really neat.
Yeah, and along with math, I think that's a subject that intimidates a lot of people. And whatever grade my oldest was in, they would say, "Wouldn't you feel? Aren't you nervous to teach your kids math?" And I said, "It's fine. I'm at a 5th grade level." Because I would just learn right along with them. And so, I mean, now that I'm on kid number 6, I'm like, what do you need help with? I can do it all. But I'm also helping a junior in high school with his math, because I'll just go watch a YouTube video and I'll go learn how to do it, and I can do equations like it's
it's funny, when my 5th grader was learning long division, there were a couple of days where we were both in tears trying to figure it out. And I remember that and just saying to him, I'm so sorry, I'm so bad at math. And I was always bad at math, and I just don't remember this. And so we would go YouTube and we would watch little videos of how to do these problems and tips and tricks. And it's funny, now my next child's on long division, and I think we're on the 3rd one now that's doing it, and I totally get it. And I'm like, hey, I can help you now, and I don't cry ever. And that's so great for me. But it's just been a really wonderful journey for me to fall in love with these subjects again, or for the first time, some of them. And the funny thing is, as much as I didn't like math, I'm in the process of writing a math book right now, which cracks me up. I think it's hilarious, maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
But here I am writing a book about math and how much I love it and the fun things that you can do with it. And so it's been a really special journey for me.
Yes, and I think it's fun because some of these things I am learning for my first time, especially history, where I wasn't very involved in my own education. And so now it's this first time. And so I have a ton of enthusiasm. Like, oh, did you guys know that while this was happening in Europe in the 1800s, this was happening in the Americas and over in Asia? And you start putting the own dots together, and it gets your kids excited because, like, I'm learning for the first time. And so it's fun. And I eat it up too of their education.
What's that book that we were reading for Learning Circle, the history one?
Oh, it's now I can't remember. Ancient Egypt history.
Yeah, so we, for our moms group that we're a part of, that we meet monthly, but we started reading this big historical text, and the two of us were so excited about it, and we were eating it up, and some of the other moms got tired of it, but we loved it. But I think the thing that, because of me learning alongside my kids, it's given me a greater hunger for learning, and it's made me want to continue to increase my knowledge. And I'm reading deeper books than I would have in the past, and more nonfiction. I used to mostly just read a lot of lighter fiction type books, but now I just have more of a hunger for learning.
Well, we had a conversation yesterday, not you and I, but someone else, but we were talking about the quality of books. And there's only so much time to read a book. And so why would I pick a fluffy book? And fluffy is, to me, I call them garbage books, but books that don't inspire, there's negativity, they don't uplift you.
Also called twaddle in the Charlotte Mason circles.
Everything I say has a made-up word to it. So garbage is what I call them. And so if I only have so much time and I'm reading these nonfiction books, but I want to read what my kids are reading, and I also like reading the classics, why wouldn't I spend my time doing that? And then also monkey see, monkey do. And it's funny, if you have seen my Instagram stories, my 5th and 6th grader chose to read the unabridged Les Mis book because that's the culture we're creating.
That's great. And then along with that, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but because of us learning alongside of our kids, we're a lot more comfortable teaching those harder subjects when we get to them. We talked about chemistry and advanced math and things like that. While it may be scary initially, the longer we teach and the more comfortable we become with these harder subjects, the easier it is for us to teach them when they come along. And
I think the confidence that has come along in our homeschool co-op, sometimes you're asked to teach a class you are not comfortable with. And maybe comfortable is not the right word, but that you don't feel as knowledgeable about something else. And it was funny, I got a text this week and said, hey, can you teach this or this or this? And I said, pick one. I don't really care. I'll figure something out. And it's fun, and you kind of go off the class. The class I had yesterday, we actually played Miss America, and I made him practice how to do an interview question. And so just having fun with it, and we had a microphone and made them come up and wave all beautifully. But it was a good time, and they learned a lot of great interviewing skills as well.
Yeah, that's cool. And then also along with that, there in the homeschool community and online, there are a lot of options for mentors that you can find that can help you teach these kinds of subjects. You know, if you're in a co-op, you can have somebody teaching a subject you're very uncomfortable with, but you want your child to learn, or you can find an online course very easily as well. So there are options. If you really don't think that you can teach chemistry or pre-calculus, that is okay, because you can find other people who can help you with it.
Definitely. All right, that is our episode for today. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
That was a good ending.
That was good. I need to blow my nose. It was like